Dancers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we're about to go from Paddington all the way to Washington for the Late Show Live tonight with the very wonderful Ben Leo. Ben, look, what's in front of me here is all tomorrow's newspapers for here in Britain. We've got things like massive tax rises, 2 billion quid from Rachel Reeves. We've also got Prince Andrew. The grooming gang inquiry is in chaos, but of course there's one on the front of the Daily Telegraph, which I think you're getting stuck into quite a bit, which is this Putin defying Trump as the peace talks collapse.
Yep, don't know about you, Patrick, viewers and listeners, but Ukraine, Russia, I was a bit indifferent before. I was kind of the train of thought, look, it's a war thousands of miles away. I don't really care. I'd like the killing to end, but I didn't really buy the argument that if Russia wins, they'll be on Poland's doorstep next and then crossing over to Dover along with the small boats. But now I think my patience with Russia is wearing absolutely thin, and I fear President Trump's maybe as well, because tonight this big peace summit set for Budapest in Hungary between Trump and Putin has been absolutely torpedoed because Russia refuses to move on their ceasefire demands. So we're getting stuck into that. Elsewhere, Bible sales in the United States have rocketed, Patrick. Everybody's finding their faith. Hallelujah, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Also, Pizza Hut, Patrick, not sure if you saw this, back in the UK, is closing 70 stores, which is a big shame. I used to love the ice cream factory when I was a boy at Pizza Hut. Hasn't been, well, it's been probably decades since I last had some. But tonight, we have some Pizza Hut in the studio, just to prove to British viewers that we're still going strong here in the US. And lastly, Patrick, I want your thoughts on this. Accuse me of being egotistical if you want, but Jesse Jones on Your Say has just said, and it's got me a bit miffed, Ben Leo has lost a bit of his boyish look since working in the US. Has the power of freedom, bald eagles and Super Size Me made a burly man of him? America, F yeah. Have I lost my boyish looks?
No, I mean, I've been working on the dad bod for a consistent period of time here now, and now especially that I've actually got a son, I have some kind of excuse for it. I think you're a remarkably svelte individual, but I wouldn't say that you'd lost your boyish charm at all. By the way, on the Pizza Hut thing, that used to be the absolute classic kids' birthday party. Laser Quest, bowling, the arcade, followed by Pizza Hut. I mean, it was you couldn't beat that. I would do that now probably, but you know, people would look at you like you're a bit weird.
I think they've stopped the ice cream factory, but the tradition was, and you'll probably know, you'd go and get the ice cream factory, but then or maybe you didn't do this. Maybe it's just me being a little scally, but you'd get a big bowl or something or a bag and absolutely rinse the pick and mix, and then put them in your mum's bag so you could take them home for later on. So yeah, those were the days.
You're looking at a man, Ben, who once got asked to leave an all-you-can-eat buffet in Nottingham for filling a pint glass full of chocolate fountain. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, mate. Anyway, I do get the distinct impression you've got more serious stuff on, so I should probably let you crack on with that. You've got a war to sort out, mate.
Yeah, no, it's just Pizza Hut and comments about my looks tonight. I'll see you on the Late Show Live in just a few minutes. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah. Hello, good evening to you. Thank you for your company on the Late Show Live tonight.
You've got two countries that are killing each other. Two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens.
Peace talks have been nuked. Breaking tonight, Donald Trump's crunch talks with Vladimir Putin in Hungary have now spectacularly collapsed, with Russia accused of being stubborn and greedy. Is it now time for Trump to get tough with Moscow and help Ukraine finish the job? Also tonight.
You know, and the media has kind of painted it as this, I'm celebrating his death or I'm celebrating the shooting, but it's kind of a massive misrepresentation of what happened. And
Deary me, room temperature IQ there by the student dictator. Oxford Union's scruffy president-elect is contesting a no-confidence vote to kick him out over his social media post celebrating Charlie Kirk's shooting. So much for democracy, eh? Also tonight.
Absolute nonsense. And is she willing to provide any evidence that this is going to take place? This treaty protects the security of the outer islands.
The Great Chagos betrayal, it rocks on. The government rejects claims Mauritius is in discussions with China over Chagos Islands, with only the dusty lords now able to save the £40 billion surrender deal. And while President Trump prepares billions to bail out US farmers, British farmers, meanwhile, are planning a huge tractor protest in Westminster to mark Rachel Reeves' budget next month. And it's set to be one of the biggest yet. All the details on that coming very shortly. Also tonight.
How would you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered for courage for my faith.
Hallelujah, Christ has risen. Bible sales surge all across the United States after Charlie Kirk's murder. Is our shallow, vacuous society now driving people back to God? We'll also be diving headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hours before they hit the shelves. Paul Cox is on standby with that. And of course, we're live in Washington, just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain too, including President Trump's latest crack at stand-up.
What a friendly group this is. No Democrats are here, right?
I'm Ben Leo. This is the Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Hello, good evening. I'm going to take you straight to the Oval Office now, where President Trump's been giving an update on the Russia-Ukraine situation. He's been speaking after the meeting between Trump and Putin in Hungary was torpedoed today after a fallout over how the war should end. Let's listen to President Trump now.
I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals. They're agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle, on the battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody take some time off, because you got two countries that are killing each other. Two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens. We haven't made a determination. I do. It's a vicious look. It's a vicious war. It doesn't really affect us. We sell equipment to them. We sell equipment to NATO, and NATO gives it to Ukraine, but we don't pay anything anymore. Biden spent $350 billion. The war would have never happened if I were president. Would have never, not even a million years. And Putin knows that too. Would have never happened. But it did happen, and I came in, and I have to see if I can put it out. But it doesn't affect us, because we're not losing soldiers there. Although, when I first came in, that could have ended up, it's not going to happen, but it could have ended up in World War III. That was really out of control. So now it's, they're shooting and they're killing people, and I think Putin wants it to end, and I think Zelensky wants it to end, and I think it's going to end.
Well, there we go. President Trump remaining somewhat diplomatic still and hopeful of a peace still. Look, I'm not sure exactly when I decided I'd had enough of Russia's antics in Ukraine, but it possibly came during my family holiday to Turkey in August. Russian holidaymakers, and I'm sure you've had the same, overtook the hotel we were staying in, and, well, you can probably guess the rest. I flew home wanting Ukraine to be armed to the absolute teeth so they could finish Russia off for good. And tonight, I wouldn't blame President Trump for his patience wearing thin over Putin either, because Russia today has refused to accept America's terms for a ceasefire. They've long demanded, Russia, that Ukraine withdraws from the entirety of the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions as the precondition of peace, but it's just not going to work. The White House, though, today announced there are no plans for Putin and Trump to meet in the immediate future. Zelensky, meanwhile, reckons Russia bottled the Hungary meeting because Trump wouldn't give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles. Zelensky said Russia almost automatically became less interested in diplomacy when it became clear Trump had delayed any decision to hand over the Tomahawks to Kyiv. Zelensky, meanwhile, will travel to London on Friday to meet with the so-called Coalition of the Willing, headed by Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron. And in the UK, we are apparently ready to splash the cash in defence of Ukraine. This is Defence Secretary John Healey today.
And as Labour government, we are stepping up further. This year will provide the highest level of military aid to Ukraine ever, £4.5 billion this year alone. We've taken over the leadership of the Ukraine Defence Contact Group alongside Germany.
Before we get stuck into that, tonight I'm joined in DC by my panel, the political commentator Stephen Kent, there he is, and Democrat strategist Mally Smith. Good evening, chaps. I'll get both your opinions on this in just a tick, but first let's get the take of Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, former graduate of US Army Command and the General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth. Stuart, good evening. Thanks for your company. I was half joking in that introduction there about the Russians overtaking the Turkish hotel, but in actual fact, my patience with Russia is wearing thin, and I fear President Trump's must be now as well. What's your take, Stuart?
Good evening, or good morning as it is here. I think that you're absolutely right. I think everybody's patience is wearing thin with Putin and his Russian administration. And I think the US President Donald Trump is getting increasingly frustrated by the fact that he can't make any progress because, frankly speaking, Russia actually doesn't want a ceasefire. Russia's war aims, such as they were expressed at the beginning of the conflict, 3.5 years ago, remain the same. And they keep imposing impossible conditions on Zelensky and the Ukrainians for a ceasefire. And the Ukrainian withdrawal from the Donbass, which they're now demanding, is just a non-starter, because that is the one defense line, robust defense line, that's stopping the Russians entering the center of Ukraine. So it's just not going to happen. And I think Donald Trump has run out of patience. And as he said himself, doesn't want to waste his time with a meeting in Budapest.
Yeah, I mean, he's being fairly diplomatic when you consider his outspoken sort of rhetoric on other issues. But what should happen now? How should the US proceed? Do you think Americans, I'll ask the panel actually in a minute, do you think Americans are getting sick of this war? Because frankly, it's nothing to do with them. It's thousands of miles away, and it's Europe, it's NATO that's potentially under threat, not America.
Yes, I think that's the case. But of course, America is the linchpin of NATO. And the one thing that Putin doesn't want is to enter into direct conflict with NATO, because he knows that Russia would lose. So we're in a very difficult situation where I think Donald Trump is walking a tightrope in the diplomatic efforts that he is making, trying to bring both sides to some sort of compromise where they can start negotiations. But at the moment, the Russians are not interested. And it's interesting that the carrot and stick diplomacy that he employs can be seen at play here again. But I think maybe it is now high time, rather than react to Putin and the Russians, that Donald Trump and his NATO allies in Europe should start to impose their terms on Russia and say, well, you know, if you don't come to the negotiating table, we will give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, which won't finish the war. It's not a war-winning weapon, but it will certainly change the dynamic.
Okay, just educate me, Stuart. Why are Tomahawks so important? What are their capabilities? What do they do? And who else can give them to Ukraine? Is it just the United States that can do that? Or, I mean, can Keir Starmer do it?
Taking the capabilities, it's an American designed cruise missile which can be launched from the air, from land, or from submarines in the sea. And the importance of it to Ukraine is that it has an unclassified range of about 1,500 kilometers, probably more than that in reality, which almost gives the Ukrainians 10 times more reach into Russia than it has at the moment with missiles like the Storm Shadow, which the UK has provided to them. The other answer is that no, only the US can release them to Russia, and although the UK has them for our submarines, there's no way that we could give them to Ukraine without US approval.
Okay, and at what point do you think President Trump will give the green light to Kyiv for these Tomahawks?
Oh, well, that's the million-dollar question. I think that when his level of frustration with the intransigence of Putin and the Russians reaches a point where he thinks, well, we've tried everything else and it's just not making any headway whatsoever. So let's now press the button and try to bring this to a conclusion as quickly as possible. But that, of course, does risk escalation, as Putin keeps pointing out. And so there's a bit of bluff and counter-bluff going on. But, I mean, Donald Trump and the USA are by far and away the most powerful actor in this particular negotiation. And really, the ball is in the US president's court.
Yeah. Well, they certainly, if they weren't the most powerful before, I mean, Trump ordered another 112 B-2 bombers the other day, or said he had an intention to order them anyway. So, yeah, talk about an arsenal way. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, thank you very much. Appreciate you staying up at this late hour. Just some quick your says, gbnews.com/your say. Thomas, you have said Ukraine has nothing to do with America. Oh dear, Benny boy, the Ukraine is America's proxy war. Maybe under Biden it was. I have a strong belief that President Trump wants this to end imminently. Kat Zeb, you've said Zelensky refused peace also, and why should the US give Ukraine anything? It's time, the US just walks away. And Ralph, you've said the Donbass is Russian speaking and they were being bombed by Zelensky to create the crisis Biden wanted. Right, keep those coming in. gbnews.com/your say. Time now for my panel, political commentator Stephen Kent and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith. Good evening, chaps.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for your company. Thank you for waiting patiently. Mally, we'll start with you. What's your take on this whole fiasco? Is it time President Trump got tough?
Yeah, and I think Putin really has made a strategic mistake here, because when Trump was inaugurated, I think there was the ability for him to get a deal that would have been much more favorable to him than if President Harris had been elected. Just because, and that doesn't even mean to be a shot at Trump, I just think Trump is less defined on this idea that we need to make sure Ukraine's borders are as what they were before the invasion. But what he's done here is he's made himself himself and the Russians look more stubborn and obstinate than Hamas. Like, Trump was able to get a deal with Hamas, but Putin has been much more difficult to work with.
I mean, this is kind of the remarkable thing about having a president who is fully alive. Donald Trump is exerting full pressure on all of these different fronts, including Vladimir Putin and the war in Ukraine. The last time that Joe Biden spoke to Vladimir Putin was a week before the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. There was no communication, direct lines of communication that were publicized to the American press for over 2 years. Shocking. So this is what diplomacy looks like. Things get good, things go bad, then we come back to the table a week later and try again.
I've always said as well, I mean, maybe you disagree, but the withdrawal from Afghanistan, Biden's botched withdrawal, just a complete embarrassment to the country, if you don't mind me saying so. I think that's what encouraged Putin in the first place. I think he saw who was sitting in the White House, the way he was running things, and thought, okay, let's go into Ukraine. It's a side point, though. These Tomahawk missiles, Mally, do you think President Trump will eventually cede to Kyiv?
That's a tough one, because Trump on this issue seems to swing whichever way when it comes to folks he's talked to most recently. So if he's talked to Putin, it's probably going to be, no, I don't want to give them the Tomahawk missiles. If he's talked to Zelensky, he'll probably give them to him. But I do think he should, because Putin is someone who's not going to respond to anything other than pure force and raising up the cost of this incursion. So I think he needs to give Ukraine the tools to make this as painful as possible.
So the argument is, we don't want World War III. That's what I've heard for years and years and years. And we don't want boots on the ground. We don't want British and US troops on the ground in Ukraine. Do you think it would realistically come to that?
Give them long-range missiles that can strike deeper into Russia, and you are playing with fire. I'm not a fan of the idea of giving them these missiles. I think we need to continue to put pressure on ending things where they are. Now, Donald Trump, I don't think this man cares about the Donbass region. I don't think he cares about where these lines are. He wants a win. He likes to be the guy who brokered peace, and it doesn't matter to him what it is. And I think that's the correct American position. We don't have a vested interest in how far the border is going to be on the east side of Ukraine. But Donald Trump is going to push for where he actually thinks there's mush, and that might be to provide those missiles. I just don't think he's going to do that.
Do you not care as an American from the NATO perspective? Of course, you pretty much prop NATO up. So I mean, if Russia does increase its border and they push west across, I mean, again, we're here in Britain, Russia's going to end up on Poland's doorstep, and then it's Britain next. So you not care about
I've got relatives in NATO nations in Latvia, right? Like, this is not something that I want to see any kind of boldness on the part of Russia to do this, but it just happens to be the case that Ukraine is a more complicated example than any NATO member state.
Well, but even with NATO member states, we've seen Putin test the boundaries here. They have used drones and to have incursions into NATO countries.
Poland recently,
Poland, to test and see what our resolve is. So again, I don't think the Ukrainian border at this point is ever going to be completely reconstituted as what it was. But I do think there needs to be pain for Putin to show that he didn't get away with this, even if he gets some land, that it wasn't worth the cost.
Yeah, and Mali, you mentioned about how even Hamas could come to a deal, you know, and there was peace in the Middle East. But I guess the argument there is that Trump had the support from all the Arab states, the UAE, even Turkey, you know, Oman, Jordan, and they put pressure on Hamas. I think Iran as well eventually has agreed to stop funding them. So, I mean, who's there to put pressure on Russia?
Well, Hamas didn't have nuclear weapons, right? Putin has this kind of Trump card where he's, you know, going to feel like he can't be pushed around. So it's going to take a little more.
You can't push him around the same way. It's not the same war.
And isn't it refreshing, hey, to have a president in President Trump who, you know, is very clear and concise and authentic in
He doesn't go to bed at 8 p.m. You know, that's a huge victory for the United States.
Or lying on the beach in, where was Biden lying on the beach? Was it Delaware? Yeah.
He's very clear and concise. He just changes his opinion depending on who he talks to.
That is right. That's right.
Thank you, chaps. gbnews.com/your say. Shelley, good evening. Shelley, you have said, sometimes, Ben, I think they should slam the door on all of them. Ukraine are pretty corrupt by all accounts. Are they really worth bothering with? And Putin, well, he's a law unto himself. All of this interfering sometimes always lands harder on us. That's what Blair did in the Middle East, and that never got us anywhere. Yeah, Shelley, I was pretty much of that mindset, and probably still am now. I just think, I mean, when I see how Russia are behaving, refusing to engage in proper peace talks, pretty much mugging off President Trump in Alaska and wasting everybody's time, I just think that maybe just Ukraine should finish the job. Keep those coming in. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. Well, it looks like my house back in Blighty, which is getting ripped apart. Looks like a Iranian ballistic missiles hit my home at the moment. That was the White House, of course, under construction. We'll reveal Donald Trump's big reconstruction plans in just a tick. But first, a story you don't want to miss.
I didn't even know, you know, I always saw was shooting at Charlie Kirk event, you know, and the media has kind of painted it as this, I'm celebrating his death or I'm celebrating the shooting, but it's kind of a massive misrepresentation of what happened. And
well, if you aren't familiar, that scruff there is the Oxford Union president-elect who's been ousted over his comments on Charlie Kirk's murder. Was it really a misrepresentation, as he claims? Well, all the details coming next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Somebody went up there and they say, you're the third best president in the United States. This was on television, third best. And they said, who are the first two? George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And I got extremely angry at this man. You can't. It's going to be tough to beat, Mr. Senator. It's going to be John. It's going to be very tough to beat Washington and Lincoln, but we're going to give it a try, right? Hey, they didn't put out 8 Wars, 9 Coming.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. That, of course, was President Donald Trump addressing guests at his White House Rose Garden lunch. He's been a reality TV star. He's been a billionaire property developer, United States president twice, of course. I think, though, he's missed his calling as a comedian. He probably is the funniest, regardless of your politics, you've got to admit, the funniest US president I think this country's ever had. Anyway, we move on to more serious matters. Oxford Union President-elect George Aberonier won't step down after losing a no-confidence vote, and he's now mounting a challenge against the vote itself. I mean, it's the behaviour of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. The 20-year-old sparked outrage after his apparent celebration of Charlie Kirk's murder last month. In a leaked group chat of text messages, Mr. Aberonier said, "Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go." Another message, believed to have come from his Instagram account, saw him joke of the matter, quote, "Charlie Kirk got shot, LOL, laugh out loud." Here he is debating Charlie at the Oxford Union in May.
With all due respect, have you been to London the last 10 years? Men can do whatever they want. I live in London. Are they happier? Men can dress how they want. Men can act how they want. They can go to any club. Has it worked?
Yeah, but also we've had austerity. There are other factors outside of simply just.
You see what you're doing, respectfully. You're scrambling for an excuse to get away from the truth that's right in front of you. I mean, maybe men should get married and have children.
Joining me now is the political officer and secretary of Oxford's Conservatives, Conor Boyle. Conor, good evening, good morning to you. What's your take on this? This guy turns up to a debate with Charlie Kirk looking like an absolute scruff, wearing an oversized Batman T-shirt, stained jogging bottoms, and then when Charlie Kirk dies, he's revealed to be pretty much celebrating it. He's been accused of, which he now denies. Has he been misrepresented as he claims?
I don't think so. No, the comment was pretty clear. He said, you know, when he found out that Charlie Kirk had been shot, his reaction was, you know, let's effing go. It seemed pretty celebratory, and then, as you said, the lull, which was another message, you know, elsewhere. So, yeah, I don't know if he can really claim that he's been taken out of context there. I must correct you, Ben. I'm the former long gone political officer of the Oxford Conservative Association. I think whoever's in that role now would be pretty miffed that I was taking credit for no doubt the good work that they're doing on campus.
Oh, that's okay. I've given you a promotion. What do you make of the fact he's now contesting this vote? I mean, he's been democratically voted out, and now he's kicking off about it in sort of North Korean fashion. That's not very democratic of him, is it?
No, but it's fairly typical, I have to say, of the Oxford Union, and I don't say that with any malice. Like the Oxford Union, it's an institution I'm a member of, and I'm quite fond of it, but this sort of thing happens after every single election, every single sort of process. People challenge it. It has become so litigious, so judicial over the last couple of terms. I'm sure that was probably always the case to an extent, but I have noticed, you know, in my time there, it got a lot worse. And while I think it's fairly dishonourable, probably, to challenge it, he's very much not alone, and he's following in the footsteps of people who have done it brazenly, and have succeeded in challenging democratic elections and gotten things overturned and got in, even though that they were rejected once, twice, 3 times by the members of the Oxford Union.
OK, just before I let you go, Conor, I want to read you Mr Abrionier's response to all this furore. He said, 2 centuries later, the same people who claim to believe in the Union are now acting in stark opposition to the Union's founding principles by supporting a campaign of harassment, censorship and abuse. We will not be silent. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, I suppose there's been a claim made that, well, first of all, listen, there's always going to be internal politics within the Oxford Union, and I think there's probably a dynamic there between the sitting president, the outgoing president, and himself, and that's an internal matter. But I suppose they've claimed that there was abuse directed at him on social media. I've no doubt that on the fringes, whatever that is true, and to the extent that that's going on, and that they're going to say anything, you know, about him on the basis of his race or anything else, that's just not on. You have to condemn that. But what he said is so bizarre that it did, in my view, warrant his removal, because I'm all for free speech. I will defend anyone's right within you know, within reason to say what they like, but to condone political violence, to celebrate the assassination of someone who just had a different opinion to yourself, that is not the mindset of someone who should be running an institution which is all about discussion, all about debate, all about thrashing out issues in a civilized way. That's just not on.
Yeah, and also, regardless of free speech, I think he should have been kicked out regardless, because it just shows the sort of cowardice of the man, the level of integrity he's got, that he'd go face-to-face with somebody, Charlie Kirk, whoever, you go face-to-face with someone, you have what is meant to be a civilised, open, democratic discussion between human beings, and then you're I'll just say it now, you're such a snivelling little snide that when he's assassinated in cold blood, you pretty much, as he's been accused of, celebrate it in private with your friends and start laughing about it. For me, that's the lowest of the low, and just shows the integrity of the man. He's not a man, he's a little boy, but for me, he deserves to be kicked out simply for that. Conor, last word.
I totally agree. I think actually one of the great things I always found about the Oxford Union and Oxford more generally was you got access to meet and to hear speak, you know, people like, you know, MPs and politicians and whatnot, access that I would never have got otherwise had I not been a member of the union. And I found that, you know, I came face to face with plenty of people I really, really disagreed with vehemently. You know, Richard Bergen, you list loads of sort of left-wing types. And I have to say, I could never imagine a situation where I would have met someone face to face. Not to say that they convinced me of their ideas, but then that I would have been so, I don't know, put off by them personally, having met someone personally, come that close to them, and then cheer at the notion of them being shot in the face. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. I really can't.
Yeah, and he's such a coward, not only for that, but the fact his response to all this, saying, oh, it's misrepresented, the media's spinning it. Just own it. If you wanted to celebrate the murder of Charlie Kirk or whatever, just own it and be a man and say, yeah, I'm proud Charlie Kirk died because I thought his views were threatening or some other BS. Conor Boyle, thank you very much. Appreciate your company. Let's bring in the panel now. Political commentator Stephen Kent and the Democrat strategist Maddie Smith, and also GB News superstar and comedian Paul Cox, who is beaming into DC live from London. Hello, Paul. Good evening. What's your take on this George Aberonier situation? Do you think he's a snivelling little coward?
Well, quite. I mean, to celebrate anyone's death, I think is snivelling. Now, I guess there are some exceptions to that. However, if you have debated them at Oxford University within the same 12 months, you know, a grand organisation, one of the oldest in the world, within the debating arena there, in a situation where, you know, you're supposed to uphold a certain amount of principles. He hasn't done that. And do you know what? He is someone who has undoubtedly ridden the DEI wave within the UK educational system, and it's not unfair to say that. This is a guy whose results at A-levels were ABB, and he went to study PPE.
Well, he's completely dense, you can see that.
Well, he certainly was given... You or I... for whatever reason, we would not get into Oxford Uni with ABB as our results at A-level. So I think it would have come quite some shock for young George that he's had something taken away from him, because he's quite often been given things. And unfortunately, when you create this environment where people are able just to do as they please, based, you know, shall we say, on the colour of their skin, which is outrageous, really. I mean, I couldn't care for the colour of his skin or his political views. You know, if he'd got there on merit, he got there on merit. One thing I will always take umbrage with, though, is when someone is so arrogant, so unaware of themselves, so lacking of empathy, that they are able to celebrate the death of a man whilst he's laying warm on the floor, and none of us knew what the outcome of that was.
Stephen, I think you were agreeing with what Paul was saying there.
Yeah, there's not much left to say on the cowardice of this guy. I don't want to speak out of school, as it were. You know, I've never been to Oxford, but I do watch those debates, and George does not raise the bar. This comment that he made, that he is now being ousted from his position as president, my understanding is that he's simply being removed from a leadership role. You're not entitled to lead the organization when you don't represent the values. There's not like cancel culture for if a doctor decides that they don't believe in the do no harm principle of the Hippocratic Oath. It just means that you are no longer aligned with the values and oaths of your profession. So sure, he's going to still be a member. He'll probably still do debates and pepper people with bad questions and lackluster insights from the peanut gallery, but he doesn't need to be leading the place.
And Maddie, you, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were at Cambridge for a year or so, weren't you? Did you see the likes of George Aberonier around Cambridge? I mean, to me, he seems like a pretty low-grade student. Is that just part of the course these days?
No, as I say, Oxford might be older, but Cambridge is better. But so, look, he got what was coming to him in regards to this comment. It's disgusting, it's terrible, and you know, I'm not a fan of how far cancel culture went years ago, but I don't think this is cancel culture. This is just consequences of not being allowed to do this extracurricular activity after saying pretty terrible stuff. You shouldn't, you know, root for your political opponents to be murdered or killed or hurt, especially in a time when, unfortunately, political violence is far too common.
Yeah, indeed. Especially after meeting him as well. I mean, it's not acceptable at any time, but the fact you'd met the bloke, you'd gone face to face with him, you know, have some male courage about you and some integrity. As I said, he ran off like a snivelling little kid and celebrated the death of a man he'd met a couple of months before. To me, it was disgusting. Right, thank you, Paul. I'll catch up with you in just a sec. We've got all the newspaper front pages. Pick your best stories and we'll come back to you in just a second. And thank you, panel. gbnews.com/your say. Gwyn, good evening, Gwyn. You've said completely disrespectful to Charlie Kirk just because he got taken to task by Charlie. Charlie, complete loser. Papers on the way next with Paul Cox. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think it's important for Americans to know a couple of things. Number one, there are not going to be American boots on the ground in Gaza. The President of the United States has made that very clear. All of our military leadership has made that very clear.
Vice President J.D. Vance there reassuring Americans earlier today on his visit to Israel about the situation there. He also said that if Hamas doesn't play ball, they'll just go and wipe them out. So that's good to hear. Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I'm Ben Leo. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the shelves in Blighty tomorrow, starting with The Times. The Chancellor plans a £2 billion tax raid on the middle classes. Rachel Reeves will target professionals in partnerships because, of course, this government has absolutely no idea how to make money or create wealth or motivate the nation. The Daily Mail is reporting that the grooming gangs inquiry is in absolute chaos. That's after 3 victims pulled out amid claims of a cover-up. The Independent reports tomorrow that Brexit hit the economy even harder than feared. That's according to Rachel Reeves, who's been digging deep into her box of excuses as to why the UK has no growth in 12 months since they took power. The Washington Post, Trump's refugee plan seeks 7,000 Afrikaners and virtually no one else. We discussed this story yesterday. Actually, it's pretty much any right-winger across Europe or South Africa who's being persecuted for being pro-migration or pro-free speech. gbnews.com/yoursay. Paul Cox is down the line now from London, GB News superstar and comedian, and we'll welcome back the panel as well. Paul, what story would you like to get stuck into first on the front pages?
Hi Ben, I'd like to talk about the Daily Mail. Grooming gangs inquiry in chaos, and isn't it just? We now have a grand total of 4 victims that are refusing to take part. 2 people who potentially were going to chair it are no longer going to chair it. We've got victims coming out and saying that Jess Phillips, the Women and Girls Secretary of State, should step down, and that if she doesn't step down, then they will not take part in the inquiry because allegedly she seems seemed to suggest today in Parliament that one of the victims or some of the victims had been lying. This has become incredibly politicised. What we've got now is a situation which is now 2 to 3 decades old, historic Muslim rape gang perpetrators running amok in the UK, and it's an incredibly sorry state of affairs. And we're getting to a point now where we're finally looking at getting some justice, and it's being politicised all over the shop. All over the shop. It seems like it's an inquiry in name only. Keir Starmer doesn't seem to want to do a full inquiry. To be fair, Shaban Mahmood has come out this afternoon and pledged that this will be an inquiry based on the grooming gangs. It will be based on the ethnicity and the religion of the potential perpetrators. But it's all hot air at the moment, and one of the reasons that the victims themselves are refusing to take part is because they're having to submit their questions beforehand. So they're not really getting justice, they're not really getting transparency, and there seems to be a complete lack of honesty. It's abhorrent, Ben. It's unbelievably bad. Unbelievably bad.
Yeah, Jess Phillips today in Parliament, it just astounded me. I was watching it here stateside and I was just gobsmacked. Stephen and Mally, what's your take on the grooming gangs, the Pakistani rape gangs situation in the UK? What's your view from this side of the pond? Mally, let's start with you.
Well, I think it shows you just more evidence that no matter where you are on the political spectrum, you need to take crime and violence seriously. If you don't take these issues seriously, it is a big stain on your political party, and you will lose trust of the voters.
Stephen, your thoughts?
These things are not hard to crack down on. The very fact that this is so convoluted, that there's talk of cover-ups, that this has become a political issue, means that there are people who have made mistakes and are ideologically connected to keeping some of this stuff going on in Britain. I wish you guys the best. This has to stop.
Stephen, is it a big issue here? I mean, something that you've heard of, most Americans have heard of in the US. Is it a common thing for Americans to be aware of?
It's gotten a little bit of coverage in some of our non-mainstream media. Barry Weiss and the Free Press have done a pretty good job of bringing this to light. But I mean, I would say it's a C or D list issue here in the United States, insofar as we are interested in how immigration is changing communities in ways that people don't recognize the places that they're from. So this connects a lot to our conversations about places like Dearborn, Michigan, and sort of the out-of-control impact of Muslim immigration on old American towns.
Yep, indeed. Well said. Paul, should we look at the front page of the Times? I'd like to talk about the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Of course, when Labour were running for power, it was all about growth, growth, growth. We've had nothing of the sort. Instead, we've had tax hike, tax hike, tax hike, a raid on farmers, a raid on businesses, a raid on pensioners, every man and his dog. What's your take on this?
Yeah, Chancellor plans £2 billion tax raid on the middle class. This is very specific, actually, quite nuanced. It's based on a limited liability partnerships, which is the type of partnerships that run GP surgeries, accounting practices, lawyers, etc. And the sort of people that are earning maybe 100 to 300 on £1,000 per year on average, which is kind of 150 to 400,000 US dollars a year. So you might think on the face of it, well, you know, these people are earning a lot, perhaps they should be paying more. But look, it's a tax on aspiration, it's a tax on success. We want people to be entrepreneurial. We want people to be free to earn as much as they possibly can and give back into the economy. And she's just finding someone else to tax. It's unbelievable.
Well, Paul, I think she should talk to the Trump administration, because she probably could learn a lot in regards to this tax plan, because the tariffs have been a huge tax increase on the American middle class. It's estimated that it raises taxes on the American middle class by $2,400 per family. So if she wants to learn how to do it, she can talk to our own president.
Okay. I mean, I must admit the tariffs have been bemusing.
But they are, Trump is, we're going to be touching on it at 1 o'clock, Trump is trying to help. Farmers, for example, they've been hit with soybean sort of hikes from China.
Trying to help the own
$20 billion bailout.
Bailout from his own policies. But sure, yes, let him bail out his own mistakes.
OK, thank you guys. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. We'll catch up in the next hour. Stephen, before we go to the break, somebody on your say has said, Stephen looks like Ryan Reynolds, and I think you're a very handsome chap indeed.
I've gotten this since middle school.
Good thing.
You like it? Is it a compliment for you?
It's a compliment. He's a handsome guy.
Yeah.
Who would that not be a compliment for?
Sometimes people say I look like who's the Spider-Man guy? Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield,
Yeah,
and that is 100% true.
Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live. The Chagos Islands deal passes in the Commons, but the Lords could be the saving grace if they turn up. This is the Late Show Live. Back in a tick on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. MPs have pushed through the surrender of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius despite concerns of a secret deal with China. The deal, of course, is set to cost taxpayers, you and me, more than £30 billion over the next 99 years just to give away our own sovereign territory. Very good. But it's not over yet because the deal cleared its final Commons hurdle but is set to go to the Lords next. Let's get the take of spokesperson for the Friends of British Overseas Territories, Rob Midgley. Rob, are we counting on the dusty Lords to save the surrender deal of the Chagos?
Well, I certainly hope so, Ben. I mean, it's coming up and we'll have to go through 3 different readings before we get a result from that. So hopefully they can hold it up in some way, because there is a majority of Conservative Lords in the chamber. But I've been speaking to senior UK Armed Forces officials for the past year who said that this deal is completely bonkers, but they haven't been able to speak out about it. But just to give you some backstory on what the latest news is around China.
Yeah.
And, you know, Chinese diplomats did turn up to Port Louis on the day the deal was announced to congratulate the Mauritian government. And, you know, it's Chinese narrative that they believe in stripping away the West one island at a time. And it's been very lowly reported, but Chinese spyware has been found aboard fishing vessels near Diego Garcia. But of course, the FCDO didn't want to say anything, as they didn't want to cause a diplomatic storm. And in the past few days, there's been rumours, there's been speculation, there's been lots of reports saying that China is now looking to purchase the second largest island in the Chagos archipelago, which is called Peros-Banos, for just over $10 billion. And that's from security sources from quite a few different angles. So this is all happening, this is all going on, and yes, we'll have to depend on the laws to really scrutinise it. I know they've got drop-in sessions with the ministers this week, so they will be really trying to pull apart some of those details that have lacked transparency.
Rob, what's going on with this Labour government and appeasing the Chinese, directly or indirectly? We've got the embassy, we've got the collapse of the spy trial case, we've got Rachel Reeves going over to Beijing to, rub shoulders with the CCP, and now the surrender, completely nonsensical surrender of Chagos for a lot of money, which clearly opens the door to China. What's going on there, just very quickly?
Well, you can count on the former ambassador to the US, Mr. Mandelson, on this one, and the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell. All these things link up in a very neat row of dodgy things that are going on, and I'm very concerned that these people have sold the American president a complete dud of a deal, and the sooner that he wakes up to this, the better.
But they seem so. Trump in public seems. Rubio said he was happy with the deal. Trump seems to suggest it's fine. So I just don't quite understand. Yet sources from the White House months ago were saying that the deal was a complete farce. Even Nigel Farage was saying so as well. Rob, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll catch up very shortly. That's Rob Midgley, Friends of British Overseas Territories. Thank you, Rob. gbnews.com/your say. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look. Thomas, you said at the top of your show, you showed a clip of John Healey boasting about giving Ukraine £4.5 billion. You've just read out more tax increases for taxpayers. Yes. Lagartha, you said China just offered $10 billion to Mauritius for Peros-Banos, part of the Chagos of Mauritius. They don't own it yet. Yesterday, Russia offered floating nuclear islands to Mauritius to eco-friendly provide electricity to entire nation state. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading your message because it's quite garbled, but I'll try and get to it in the next hour. And Luke Jarvis, you said Rachel Thieves is a liar, fraudster and embezzler. She would deny that, of course. Coming up in the next hour, the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers and all the details of this massive farmer protest ahead of the budget in Westminster. Don't go anywhere, back in a tick.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There could be some mist and fog patches lingering through the early hours of this morning, but then we're left with a day of sunny spells and also some showers, starting to turn wet and windy later on this evening, however. But to start, for most of us, it should be mostly bright, and to be honest, it should be a dry day for many, a mix of cloud and also some sunny spells. There are going to be some showers, though, particularly across western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England could also catch some of these showers. Quite breezy across parts of Scotland, though, which might make it feel that little bit chillier. Otherwise, still feeling pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching around 15, possibly 16 degrees Celsius, but around the low teens across parts of Scotland, so feeling that little bit chillier here. Then we will start to see a bit of a change overnight. Across Scotland, however, we'll continue to see the showers push in from the west, still fairly breezy across northern coasts. Northern Ireland still could catch some of these showers, but elsewhere across northern parts of England, it should be mostly dry. Quite a clear end to the day, fairly light winds here, so we could see some mist and fog redevelop, but all eyes are really across parts of the southwest. Some intense areas of rain starting to push their way eastwards across southern counties and parts of the southeast through the course of Wednesday, and then we'll really start to see those winds pick up too, initially around western coasts of Wales, parts of southwest England, and then elsewhere across parts of the east and southeast. So we could see some quite strong gusty winds by the time we reach the early hours of Thursday morning, and some quite intense areas of rain here too. But across the far north, a little bit calmer here, some clear skies, so feeling chilly with some mist and fog. Now, the rain is set to continue through much of Thursday morning, particularly across the southeastern half of the country. Some quite intense downpours, which could lead to some localised impacts, and also some very strong gusty winds, particularly around eastern and western coasts. A chance we could see gusts between 40 to 50 miles per hour here, with some Met Office warnings in force. And it's also going to be feeling much chillier than this afternoon.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, details of one of the biggest farmers' protests set for next month on the day of the budget in November. Rachel Reeves is going to be in for a hard time. And why can't we take a leaf out of President Trump's book and bail out the farmers? Hello, good evening on The Late Show Live tonight.
You've got two countries that are killing each other. Two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens.
Peace talks and nukes. Breaking tonight, President Trump's crunch talks with Vladimir Putin in Hungary have now been, spectacularly collapsed. They've been torpedoed, with Russia accused of being stubborn and greedy. Is it now time for Trump to get tough with Moscow and help Ukraine finish the job? Also tonight.
You know, and the media has kind of painted it as this, I'm celebrating his death or I'm celebrating the shooting, but it's kind of a massive misrepresentation of what happened. And
The student dictator, Oxford Union's low IQ president-elect, is contesting a no-confidence vote to kick him out over his social media post celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. So much for democracy, eh? And
absolute nonsense. And is she willing to provide any evidence that this is going to take place? This treaty protects the security of the Outer Islands.
Well, the deal certainly is nonsense. The government rejects claims Mauritius is in discussions with China over Chagos, with only the dusty lords now able to save the £40 billion surrender deal. And while President Trump prepares billions to bail out US farmers, British farmers in England are planning a huge tractor protest in Westminster to mark Rachel Reeves' budget next month. And it's set to be one of the biggest yet. All the details shortly. Also tonight,
how would you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered for courage for my faith.
Hallelujah. Bible sales surge all across the United States and indeed the world after Charlie Kirk's murder. Is our shallow, vacuous society now driving people back to God? We'll also be diving headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's newspapers hours before they hit the shelves. And of course, we're live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain too, including President Trump's latest crack at stand-up.
What a friendly group this is. No Democrats are here, right?
I'm Ben Leo, this is The Late Show Live, and welcome to the second hour where the stories get hotter, the pace gets a little bit faster, and the brakes have been dropped. Do not go anywhere. Hello, right, good evening. Farmers will descend on Westminster next month, targeting Rachel Reeves' budget with a nationwide tractor protest. From April next year, of course, Labour's set to whack a 20% law on agricultural assets inherited worth over at least £1 million. Farmers are demanding changes, saying the policies threaten freedoms, livelihoods and rural communities.
I want to farm. I want a future in farming. And at this rate, there's not going to be one. You know, I just want to feed the nation. You need a farmer 3 times a day, every day. And I want to be part of that. And it's so important. You know, I can't understand the hatred that Labour have against farmers. You can't make it up. They've stopped everything they can. You know, they're taxing us to the point we're not even breaking even.
Meanwhile, in the United States, President Trump is plotting to bail out American farmers with up to $20 billion in aid after, arguably, his own tariffs, which stitched them up a little bit. Soybeans, for example, from the likes of China have been hit as well, predominantly. But $20 billion in aid. Why can't the UK do the same? Why is the Labour government going after farmers? Suffolk farmer Richard Rinch joins me now. He'll be at the protest next month in Westminster. Richard, I ask every farmer who comes on with their generous time to talk about this, when the Treasury is making only £500 million a year from this proposed inheritance tax raid on the likes of yourselves and your colleagues, enough to fund the NHS for one day, what's it really about? Because it's not about the money, is it? It's not about raising cash for the coffers. What's it really about, do you think, Richard?
I believe it's largely about spite. They see us as not the same as themselves. They see perhaps us as all conservatives, which we are not, but they are just trying to grab any money they can. They perceive us as owning a lot, but we make no money. We pay taxes on what we actually make, and they shouldn't be forcing us to sell land to finance taxes.
And where do you think the government reckons the farmland, which is inevitably going to be surrendered at some point in the future because of these policies, farmers are just going to have to sell up. What do you think the government thinks about who's going to replace it? I mean, what do you think they'll do with the land?
There seems to be quite a proportion of land being sold at the moment to large bodies, whether they be charities or religious groups, who will not be paying any tax on this in the future. So they are trying to make a grab at this moment from a generation of farmers who have worked very hard to produce food for this country, and probably in the realization that they won't be able to do it again unless they change rules about land tenure.
OK, Richard, you're going to be at this massive protest in Westminster, all across the country actually, but the big one tabled for Westminster on the day of Rachel Reeves' budget in November. Tell us about it, please. What have you got planned? Somebody on gbnews.com/yoursay wondered if you were bringing out the manure trucks.
We have got our own local meeting tomorrow evening or this evening to discuss exactly what is happening. But at the moment, it looks as though there will be some sort of tractor protests in the run-up to the budget day, followed by other protests thereafter. We will be keeping our powder reasonably dry at the moment. We are a number of groups from different parts of the country. All will have probably slightly different ideas on how to show our contempt for the government and what it's trying to do. So I think you have to wait until nearer the time to see exactly what will happen.
Yeah, it's interesting, Richard. I don't think the government are listening. I don't think they really care. They argue, of course, that they need the money, the £500 million a year, to fund the NHS and schools for people like you and your children and your family. But as I said, the £500 million will fund the NHS for one solitary day. So I think that's, akin to the kind of manure that you'd rake around your fields, Richard.
It doesn't stack up. Their figures do not stack up. The NFU and many other bodies have said that it is going to damage many more farmers than the government suggests, still not get any more money in, and the NFU and others have suggested other ways of doing this tax so it doesn't damage the family farm and still gets in a small amount of money, similar to what they're hoping now, to support the NHS and education.
OK, Richard, thank you so much for staying up so late with us. Really appreciate it. Good luck at the protest. And I'd speak on behalf of most of our viewers that, you know, they are wishing good luck to you and your colleagues.
Just one more comment. We have not gone away. This is just the start.
Yes, Richard. Hear, hear. Yes. Good luck to our farmers. We need the food on the table. Political commentator Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist, there you go, Richard, Maddie Smith are here now. Stephen, you're saying hear, hear. I just don't understand who our government thinks is going to be putting their porridge, the oatmeal you call it, oatmeal on the table in the morning, you know, their cornflakes. Where do they think food's going to come from if they keep slamming farmers in this fashion?
It doesn't quite make much sense to me, but we can just look at what they have done. I mean, taking the UK and Europe as a whole, they have made it incredibly unprofitable to be a farmer. It's already a really hard business as it is. You're dealing with all sorts of natural factors that make farming really, really tough when you can't predict what's going to happen. But we're operating sort of in a different century, particularly in Europe. They're not able to produce food because they don't use modern tools like insecticides and pesticides, neonicotinoids that actually allow farmers to have more sustainable yields. They've tacked on diesel taxes. They make fertilizer unworkable just based on environmental initiatives. They prioritize all of these different things that do not equal feeding people in Great Britain. It's incredibly shameful, and what you're seeing here is farmers gasping for anything, grasping for anything that they can to actually make a living, and they don't want subsidies. You know, Europe subsidizes their farmers across the entire continent at twice the rate that America does, and we're seeing the same thing here, a bailout for farmers. They don't want a bailout, they want to make food and make money off of it.
Yeah, so President Trump, just remind us, President Trump is being mooted that he'll be giving a $20 billion bailout to farmers to help them amid the tariff fiasco, right? Because they're being particularly hit by his tariffs. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
I mean,
that is correct, but let's be clear. The American farmer is in an economic and financial crisis, and it's solely because of President Trump's actions. This last year, farm bankruptcies rose by 55%. Again, this isn't a plague. This isn't because Americans have changed their eating habits or Europeans have changed their eating habits. It's because he instituted a trade war with China that raised cost on the farmer, and then the Chinese retaliated and decided they weren't going to buy soybeans or other agricultural goods. And then those taxes that were on the American consumer, which are a direct result from Trump's tariffs, are now being used to then bail out the farmer. It makes no sense economically. And let's also be clear, farmers do not want to bail out. They want to be able to sell their own crops and make a living.
But at least, I mean, as a Brit's perspective, at least he's doing something about the arguable mess he's made.
I don't like that. No. You don't get kudos for doing doing the cleanup job.
Well, Labour in the UK, Labour has made a mess and then not cleaned up. That's what I'm saying.
Also, just to jump off what Steve was saying about.
No, yeah, I think just the thing that I want to add on here, and I'm a Republican. I like Donald Trump. I'm really glad that he won. But this RFK guy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he brought in. He is an acolyte of Brussels. He is the kind of guy who, when he actually is evaluating an agricultural policy for food production, he goes, well, they do it this way in Europe. They would never allow these chemicals to be put on their food, et cetera, et cetera. But he doesn't go, we produce way more than they do because we actually use crop protectants in the United States. So he is coming to this with a leftist Brussels mindset, and it is harming American farmers who went for Donald Trump in massive numbers, but the policies hurt to them.
It might be his brainworm talking. We don't know on that. But I think we should also talk about how this hurts not just American farmers, it hurts the American consumer. Food prices are at record highs under the Trump administration, and that is clear because of the tariffs.
Yeah, I have to say, I did a grocery shop. I went back to England a week ago, so I went to England, saw my kids, came back and did a grocery shop, $400. Not for anything obscene or particularly extravagant, just eggs and milk and some other stuff. $400.
That's a tragedy.
In America, it's going to be cheaper to get on an Ozempic prescription than to buy food under Trump.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's probably true. And also, I was saying to a friend yesterday, I was saying, I think it's probably cheaper for me as a lone man here living by myself temporarily to go out and eat out at restaurants instead of getting groceries in because it's just cheaper.
And I think I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here. If the people who are making these policies want anything, it is people who cannot provide for themselves. It is people who cannot cook food. It is people who cannot grow. It is people who will die unless they go out to McDonald's and restaurants to get their meals.
Yeah.
I generally believe that the global elite who are pushing these kinds of sustainability policies and nationalistic policies like we see in the United States here, they don't want people to be able to take care of themselves and fend for their families. They're against it.
Well, that brings me on to this comment from Wide Eyes on gbnews.com/yoursay. Bill Gates is behind all this. So says Wide Eyes. He met up with Rishi Sunak just before he left, and then Keir Starmer. What was Gates doing in number 10? Very suspicious. So
I think his eyes are a little too wide.
Bill Gates and Larry Fink, the BlackRock CEO, were in Downing Street just days before the budget in the UK, the very budget which whacked farmers. Do you buy into any of this kind of conjecture about BlackRock snapping up farmland? Bill Gates, of course, is the largest private farmland owner.
Well, they clearly are doing that. I mean, the conspiracy is, what are they doing this for? But it's clearly happening.
Not because of what you just said. I mean, the facts that suggesting that they don't want people to be self-sustainable to lead their own lives.
I don't buy into a lot of the conspiracy theories around Bill Gates. He's a technologist and a fine guy, but I don't get what's going on here. And maybe your audience can tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it requires us to go into conspiracy land to figure out what's going on. It looks like the Labor government wants to do a tax that's going to affect farmers, and Trump has a tariff that's hurting farmers. We don't really have to look farther than what we're seeing from our leaders.
People are not grateful for the policies that actually work and feed people. America is one of the most privileged places in the world when it comes to access to food and affordability. It could be a lot better. But still, you have people come into Washington, D.C. and start trying to play bureaucratic games and institute rulemaking. Again, passing insecticide laws that are going to make it harder to actually grow food and sustain, American families.
Are you referring to RFK Jr. there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's big on, just finally before we go to the weather, he's big on quality of soil for example, isn't he? So from a regulatory perspective, will his push for that make things a lot harder for farmers, and how?
Regulation always makes it harder. When you are layering on different aspects of compliance for farmers to do what they already know how to do, you are making food more expensive and you are bankrupting farms. Get out of the way. That is what the Republican Party is for, and this one is not doing it.
He just wants to make regulations easier to dispose bear carcasses in the park.
Oh, Mally.
Is that what he did?
Yeah,
really? I missed that.
He also had a whale carcass. Viewers can look.
Mally's got the receipts.
Well, I think he's an upgrade on the previous Secretary of what is it, Health and Human
Services?
Health and Human Services.
Yeah, I love the comparisons. Right, thank you, chaps. Still ahead on the Late Show Live.
How do you want to be remembered? I mean, if I die, everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my God.
Well, that's the late Charlie Kirk there, the words of Charlie, probably not too long before he died, actually. I was at his memorial in Arizona a few weeks ago. It was one of the most, I keep saying, one of the most extraordinary days of my life. I'm not overly religious. I think I'm getting there, but the Holy Spirit was in that stadium that day. Bible sales in the wake of Charlie's murder have skyrocketed all across the United States. We'll be getting stuck into that in just a sec on The Late Show Live. Back in a minute. Back quicker than that, 10 seconds more like. It's been called the modern day spiritual revival. Bible sales have soared by more than a third following Charlie Kirk's murder a few weeks ago, or last month now. In September, around 2.4 million copies of the Holy Book were sold throughout America. It was a 36% increase compared to the same month last year. That's according to Siranka Bookscan, a book data tracker. And the figure represents the single largest month on record for sales so far this year. Well, let's get the take now of Reverend Richard Fothergill on this. Richard, thanks for your company. Are you surprised that Bible sales have rocketed in the wake of Charlie's murder? He said that he'd like to be remembered primarily for spreading the gospel. I think that's words, no?
Indeed it has, yes, and I'm not at all surprised. We're seeing the same thing as a slower spade in Britain, just where Bible sales are increasing. The Bible Society did a study, quite a comprehensive study, which they published the results in April this year, which showed that Bible sales have gone up, I think, about 60% over a short period of time. But in America, not at all surprised by this, particularly, and the group that are most interested in buying Bibles and reading it are Generation Z and millennials. And of course, the group primarily that Charlie was speaking to on campuses across America, I understood nearly 100 million people heard him in the States over the last few years. And he was particularly engaging with them about what's the meaning of life. So I'm not at all surprised to hear this.
Yeah, so the youngsters particularly are looking for the meaning of life, looking for something a little bit deeper. What is it that's driven them towards that? I'm not just talking about Charlie's great work, but what is it about society, say, over the past 10, 15 years that's driven them towards that?
Well, I would think so much has gone wrong for them. They didn't have, I'm fairly old, but my early life, in my early 20s and university age and so on, was fairly predictable. You kind of knew where you might be going. But they haven't had any of that. Well, they had the COVID lockdown, absolutely wrecked their higher education if they're in university at that stage. They've got a jobs market that's really fractious and very difficult to get into. I understand unemployment amongst that generation is the highest percentage of any group. And they've also been brought up in a culture which is divided, really. And there's a lot of division. There's a lot of sort of stress, fear, and economic worries around. And then on a political scale too, you've got wars going on. So they've had an awful lot of blows. And I think there's an element of desire for stability and order and saying, well, what is the meaning? What are we here for? This has to be more than what we've experienced so far.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to bring in my panel now, the political commentator Stephen Kent and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith. Stephen, any thoughts on this story?
Oh, so many. Where to begin? I think young people, by and large, according to the most recent Pew Research polling data that we have in the United States, backs up what the father was saying, that Gen Z and millennials are increasing their church attendance as opposed to boomers. So, people who were born after the Great War, they are no longer attending church at the same rates that young people are. Now, I don't know if Charlie Kirk necessarily has a lot to do, his death has a lot to do with that, but he was leading a youth religious revival through Turning Point USA. It's a real part of that movement. I think young people are tired of the lie that boomers told them to do what feels good, to not invest in traditional institutions, to not go to church, to not get married, and to always pursue every little thing that they think feels good. And yet they are the most depressed, lonely, and isolated generation that has ever lived. And so they are changing it up. They're going for something tried, tested, true. They're going to church, and their elders are not doing that.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've been going to Reverend, I've got a question for you in a minute. I'll get your take from Mally first. But I've been going to Bible classes here since I've been in America. Not because, again, I'm particularly religious, but I just wanted to understand the Bible more, understand who wrote what, when and where, and so on and so on.
That's where it all begins.
Yeah, okay, I'm getting down. I was married in a church. Reverend, I've got a question for you in a second. Mally, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so my granddad, who I'm named after, was a Southern Baptist preacher in Durham, North Carolina for 40 years. And my parents, my mom's parents, grew up in Nigeria, West Africa as medical missionaries and also preached as well. So I think it's great that Bible sales are rising. I also have to agree a lot with what Stephen said. I think with a culture where it's so individualized and we feel so disconnected and lonely, you're seeing people turn to the church because it's one of the few community organizations in local towns that still exist where you can find togetherness and belonging and a sense of purpose.
Yeah, well said. And in the UK as well, I know it's not the same thing, a church and a pub, but that's what's happening with pubs, public houses. They were once, and still are to some extent, community meeting places where people could connect with each other, have a drink and talk and catch up. But pubs are now being eradicated, and you're losing that as well.
And those shared spaces are where people form what we call the social fabric, social capital. If you go to the pub, right, every couple of days, I think you probably are drinking too much. However, you have a lot of people who know your name, and they know when you might be having problems with your job. They know what's going on in your home because you're always talking to them. Right now, most people growing up in the United States, they don't have somebody to call when they've lost their job, when they're experiencing grief and tragedy. Your church is a place that actually provides those things. And I do believe that young people, by and large, are seeing that they've been misled by the hippie generation of the 1960s and 70s who said you need to go it alone and just live your own fulfilling life however you define it. They want to be part of something, and that has taken them to church.
Interesting. Yep. Reverend Richard, I have a question for you. I'd like to know, and this causes much debate whenever I talk about it on air, and which I'm reluctant to do now because it causes so much controversy amongst Christians. Am I a Christian? So I was married in the church. I went to a Church of England school. I was christened, and I feel like I have a relationship with Jesus. I feel Jesus. Of course, I believe, he's the Son of God. But I don't go to church regularly. I don't read the Bible, apart from the recent Bible study classes. I'm not a, sort of outwardly practicing Christian. Am I a Christian?
Pretty simple. It's all about faith. It says this in the book. So if you have faith in here that Jesus Christ is who he says he is, and he died for your sin, and you've accepted that, and you said, I can't save myself, that makes you a Christian. It's internal. Now, the outworking of that is what we've just been hearing about a minute ago, of fellowship with other believers. It's like an extended family. You now have, and that's the church in all its manifestations. But that would be the definition of it. It's always the definition. The scripture tells us very clearly about that. We are saved by faith, by the grace of God, but faith in what he's done for us. That's what makes us Christian.
Sometimes the term cultural Christian is banded around in the UK.
Well, yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of people I know who do just go through the motions. I live in a very rural village up in Cumbria, and there are many people in our village who would have been christened in the Anglican Church. I'm an Anglican priest as well as doing other ministry things. And they would be christened in the Anglican Church, and they may have got married. If they're a certain of age, they would have got married in the church rather than just living together. And they will certainly have a Christian funeral and be buried in the graveyard. But that is about as far as their kind of Christian activity goes. They would equate being a Christian as being a good person and trying your best, really. But as Billy Graham famously said, just because you were born in a garage, it doesn't make you a car. So in the same way, you can do all those kind of motions of external things that the Christian church has always done. But if there's nothing going on in here in the way of faith, I'm not sure you're a Christian.
Yeah, Ben, I have to say, to your question, if you were to find yourself shipwrecked and alone on an island for the next, long portion of your life, you had nowhere to go to church, you had no Bible, you had no community, but you still believe that Christ is the Son of God and died for your sins, the deed is done. But for me, the most transformative thing I ever read was C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, in which he tackles about halfway through that book what we now talk about as cultural Christianity. People who embrace it because it's useful. And even what I was just talking about with, it being a way to heal the social fabric of our societies, that's not enough. Coming together and hanging out in a clubhouse is not going to actually get people through the gates of heaven. But it is a great place to start. We are not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do it together.
Yeah, I get accused of being half in, half out, and you're not allowed to do that. So that's why I cause much controversy. Maybe I'll get there. Mally, are you particularly religious?
As I said, I come from a very religious family. I need to go to church more often. But one thing I would say, I hope with the sales of the Bible increasing, it's not just an act of buying the Bible, that we see a revitalization of good works across the country, whether that's giving to charity or volunteering in your community. My granddad, the preacher, liked to say some people can be so heavenly minded they're no earthly good. So hopefully this can lead to better actions throughout the country.
And Richard, just one more question for you from one of our viewers on your say. First of all, David has said, a Christian is a follower of Christ and tries to follow his teachings. Not easy. But this is for you, Richard, from Stuart Wardman, who said, if God exists and faith brings all, then this wouldn't have happened. God does nothing for me and Jesus did not die for me. If God exists and faith brings all, then this wouldn't have happened. I'm not sure what he's referring to, this wouldn't have happened. But maybe he's saying bad things wouldn't happen if God exists.
Yeah, well, that's why you actually need to read the Bible. And I would suggest he starts reading it at Matthew, 2/3 of the way through, rather than the Genesis right at the beginning. And just really see what Jesus was about. See what he said, who he was, what he did, most particularly at the end of his life, and how he went to the cross, and then how God raised him, supernaturally raised him from the dead. Because that's the central fact of all the Christian story. That's why it's called Christianity. It's around Christ. So my answer to him would be, well, look at some of the basic texts. Just see, after reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those four Gospels, tell me that. Let's have this conversation after you've read those and see what you think Jesus is claiming on behalf of that there is a God and how we relate to him and what he's actually done in his life. And so that would be my answer to it. Well, let's get some facts together to start talking about, whether God exists and whether he's relating to us or not.
Richard, thank you so much. Really appreciate your company. It's been a fascinating conversation. Reverend Richard Fothergill, back in Arizona, a Brit in Arizona. There we go. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. Coming up on The Late Show Live.
We've always said we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged, and he poked fun at it. We always owned up.
Man.
Well, that was the former White House press secretary of Joe Biden, Karine Jean-Pierre, who is on a crusade, you'd say, to defend her old boss, Joe Biden. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Back in 2 seconds.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There could be some mist and fog patches lingering through the early hours of this morning, but then we're left with a day of sunny spells and also some showers, starting to turn wet and windy later on this evening, however. But to start, for most of us, it should be mostly bright, and to be honest, it should be a dry day for many, a mix of cloud and also some sunny spells. There are going to be some showers, though, particularly across western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England could also catch some of these showers. Quite breezy across parts of Scotland, though, which might make it feel that little bit chillier. Otherwise, still feeling pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching around 15, possibly 16 degrees Celsius, but around the low teens across parts of Scotland, so feeling that little bit chillier here. Then we will start to see a bit of a change overnight. Across Scotland, however, we'll continue to see the showers push in from the west, still fairly breezy across northern coasts. Northern Ireland still could catch some of these showers, but elsewhere across northern parts of England, it should be mostly dry. Quite a clear end to the day, fairly light winds here, so we could see some mist and fog redevelop. But all eyes are really across parts of the southwest. Some intense areas of rain starting to push their way eastwards across southern counties and parts of the southeast through the course of Wednesday. And then we'll really start to see those winds pick up too, initially around western coasts of Wales, parts of southwest England, and then elsewhere across parts of the east and southeast. So we could see some quite strong gusty winds by the time we reach the early hours of Thursday morning, and some quite intense areas of rain here too. But across the far north, a little bit calmer here, some clear skies, so feeling chilly with some mist and fog. Now, the rain is set to continue through much of Thursday morning, particularly across the southeastern half of the country. Some quite intense downpours, which could lead to some localised impacts, and also some very strong gusty winds, particularly around eastern and western coasts. A chance we could see gusts between 40 to 50 miles per hour here, with some Met Office warnings in force. And it's also going to be feeling much chillier than this afternoon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. I'm Ben Leo. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the shelves tomorrow. The Telegraph reports that Putin defies Trump as peace talks collapse. This was meant to be their big peace summit in Budapest, which has now collapsed spectacularly because Russia is being greedy and stubborn. They refuse to meet America's peace demands. The Daily Mail is reporting that the grooming gangs inquiry is an absolute chaos. GB News has been reporting this all day. 3 victims have pulled out. Labour have been accused of deliberately sabotaging it. The Sun tomorrow. Off you trot, Mr. Windsor. These are calls to kick Andy from Royal Lodge, Prince Andrew. It rolls on and on, doesn't it? Prince Andrew, how does he get his money? How does he afford to pay for the rent at Great Windsor Lodge? It's a 20-room mansion that he rattles around in with Fergie. I don't know. It's about time he just left public life and kept his head down, surely. The Mirror tomorrow. Prime Minister's pride is award winners. Britain isn't broken. You're all amazing. I don't know what this is. Keir's praise at number 10 as Star Luke eyes Deputy PM's role. It's the Pride in Britain Awards. Britain isn't broken. You're all amazing. Well, there we go. That's the end of the conversation. The Washington Post. Trump refugee plan seeks 7,000 Afrikaners and virtually no one else. Not quite true. It's anybody of a right-wing disposition across Europe and South Africa who is being persecuted for free speech and thought crimes. The New York Times, White House in U-turn, says no plans for Trump and Putin to meet soon. That follows our story from the top of the show about the peace talks collapsing. Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Paul Cox is down the line from London, GB News superstar and comedian. Paul, can we start by talking about Pizza Hut? What's going on with Pizza Hut in the UK? It's closing down, isn't it?
They're shutting so many stores. But I heard you talking earlier on about you growing up and going to Pizza Hut. I didn't go to Pizza Hut growing up so much. I'm a little bit older than you, Ben. I'm 45. I know I'm at least 10 years older than you. But I have been to Pizza Hut. Look at me. I've been to Pizza Hut. And I'm very sad to see it go. It's one of these places that I do have good memories, actually. When I was dating my wife, we used to go to Pizza Hut. Because it just showed you the budget that I had, chaps, by the way. But, you know, that's what I had, and I know that's how I showed a good time. But
so
it's sad to see.
Are there no Pizza Hut stores in the UK? What's happening? Are they all going, or just a few?
No, they're not all going. They're shutting the vast majority of them. I think there's 70 stores going, and they'll be going in major cities all over the place. Of course, we're going to lose a lot of jobs.
You want any, Paul? We're having some without you over here.
I didn't know that. This is not right. How can you can't?
Yeah.
what have you
there's
got?
no Pizza Huts closing in the great United States. We take
Oh my
care of
God.
our
Look at the
businesses,
size
no
of the
problem.
slices
No
as
problem.
well. Look at the size of the
so
slices.
broken that you can't afford to have Pizza Huts anymore, Paul. I think I'll just be staying in DC.
This is outrageous. This is absolutely outrageous. Look at what is it? It looks kind of meaty.
We've been having a discussion here at the table about the culture surrounding Pizza Hut in the 1990s. They didn't serve ice cream at Pizza Hut for Americans. We don't know anything about this.
Yeah, these nutters don't know what the ice cream factory is.
That was the main reason to
factory.
go.
You're talking about the Cheesecake Factory?
Tell them about the ice cream factory. What was it? Why is it such
the
a
ice cream
British,
factory. Basically,
British institution?
it was what we would call Mr. Whippy. It's the white stuff that comes out of a machine, and you could have as much of it as you wanted. And essentially, kids like Ben and I, that are born, slight scallies, we would have just we just had our absolute fill from this machine, bowls and bowls of the stuff on the table. No, we probably couldn't eat it all, but we were filling. Yeah, at Pizza Hut. I mean, it was amazing. That's how you entertain British kids, though, Steve.
You guys say you did birthday parties at Pizza Hut. In the United States, especially kids, when Steve and I were growing up, did birthday parties at this place called Chuck E. Cheese. Is that something that exists in the UK? It's a pizza
Chuck E.
place
Cheese.
that's only for kids.
We didn't.
And there's
we didn't.
animatronic mouse that sings. It's not Mickey.
No, that sounds evil. But that we didn't have Chuck E. Cheese. We didn't have Chuck E. Cheese at all. We barely had McDonald's. I remember in the town I grew up in, the first McDonald's came in 1991, and I was 11 years old, and I remember thinking that was an amazing thing, and probably would go to McDonald's maybe once or twice a year. If only I went only once or twice a year now, I'd be in a lot better shape. But
well, if Pizza Hut wants to survive, they don't want to, do any more bankruptcies, close any stores. Keep it classic. Pizza Hut used to have a great look. It looked like a family restaurant with amazing lighting and low lights and red tablecloths. And they were basically the first ones to go all corporate and soulless, like a place that is not for children. I don't know if the radical left did this to Pizza Hut, but I'm going to find a way to blame them for it.
Just blame them anyway.
Yeah, before there was Cracker Barrel, they came for Pizza Hut. It's not as much of a fun place to be anymore.
No, it's not.
I'm not so sure about that.
Mally, your people
There's
did
a leftist
this.
agenda with the Pizza Hut, but conservatives got to be mad about something.
So,
we want Pizza Hut to have it.
If anybody wants the real reason for the closure of Pizza Hut in the UK, some 1,200 people will lose their jobs. I mean, that's sad. 68 restaurants are closing, including delivery sites. Administrators were appointed to DC London Pie Limited, which operates Pizza Hut in the UK, while the global brand owner Yum Brands stepped in to save the remaining 64 pizza restaurants. So there will still be 64 restaurants and 1,200 jobs saved, which I guess is damage limitation.
Ben, there was a Pizza Hut at Cambridge.
In the university?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Just letting everyone know he went to Cambridge again. Just cramming that in there.
He has to do a Cambridge drop every episode.
You don't know how happy my mom is about that drop. So.
I can only imagine. Fair play.
Just before we move on, there is you may have seen it, Paul, there's a pizza tracker on X, on Twitter, which tracks how many pizzas are being sold in the vicinity of the Pentagon in Virginia, just a few miles away. And whenever there's a spike in pizza orders or activity, it always seems to coincide with the US getting involved in some sort of military operation. For example, the night they sent the B-2s to bomb Iran, the tracker on X was absolutely going through the roof, all the alarms raising, people were saying, oh, what's going on here? A few hours later, it was revealed that the states were heading towards Iran.
They need to make trackers like that secret. If our enemies, and by the way, we're all on the same team here, US and UK, if our enemies can figure out when we are going to do something based on how much pizza we're eating at a specific time, we are in trouble. We shouldn't have indicators like that. That should be top secret. It's amazing though, isn't it? It's amazing that they can do that. Why has someone generated that tracker app?
Very clever. Well, Paul, let's move on to more serious matters. Before I do, Jackie said, oh, Ben, you're eating that pizza like a total man who's living on his own away from his family. True. I just hope I'm not doing my own version of Ed Miliband.
This is guys' night, Bev's not with us, so we're just going to eat pizza and have a good time.
Bev's away, the boys are here.
Some of
pizza.
us are eating pizza.
Any serious stories going on?
Well, we do have...
Yeah, he's got no Pizza Hut, so you
Yeah,
won't.
I've got no pizza at all in London, by the way. Actually, Molly's not eating pizza. I mean, he's a good guy. He's obviously on some sort of strict diet. But we've got...
He's too polite.
Well, OK, fair enough. And he doesn't want to be seen eating on TV, I guess, as well, because that's not an easy thing to do. Obviously, we've got Prince Andrew. Won't go too much about that. We cover that all the time. Off you trot. He's got a 30-bedroom mansion, royal mansion, that he pays a peppercorn rent for, which is essentially nothing, like £1 a year or something like that. And they're wondering how long he'll be in there, because the King last year actually offered him Frogmore Cottage, which is where Harry and Meghan stayed, and had a £2 million upgrade, by the way. That's only got 5 bedrooms, though, so I'm not sure how he would cope if he went into there. Interestingly, on the front of the eye, benefits set to rise by 4% as problems pile on Reeves. Well, benefits going up is a very interesting story, because they're taxing the living daylights out of absolutely everybody else. But those that are on benefits are riding the high life, Ben. I mean, it seems to me a nonsense, but this is what you get with a socialist government. They are at the behest of their backbenchers, who are at the behest of the poorest people in our society. Now, if we can teach some of those people to get out and get to work, and often those people are immigrants to this country, I'm not going all GB News on this and saying that that's the problem, but what I'm saying is we need to get people working. We don't need people on benefits, is what I'm saying. But interesting, and the big news here, of course, is Putin defies Trump as peace talks collapse. Now, you guys were talking a little bit about that earlier. It's really sad, particularly on the back of the hostages being released last week, and all the great work that Trump and the stakeholders did on that. I personally would love to see peace after the Russian invasion of Ukraine come, but Putin's playing a game here. This is not a man that should be trusted, and I think this will be the biggest challenge that Trump's faced, not just in his political career, but in his whole negotiating career as well. I don't think that Donald Trump yet has figured out how to get Putin round the table properly and get him negotiating peace, Ben.
No, well, I guess you could argue he has got him around the table. They met in Alaska. They were due to meet in Budapest, but Putin just seems to be stubborn. He won't agree America's peace demands. He won't give up Donetsk and Luhansk. And I said at the top of the show, I'm no geopolitical expert or military guru, but I mean, from an outsider's point of view, my patience has worn thin with Putin. Mally, what's your take?
Yeah, as I said earlier in the show, I think Putin really missed an opportunity for a peace deal. And I don't mean that as a slight on Trump. I just mean it in the sense that Trump is much more transactional, and I don't think he would have been as beholden to this idea that we need Ukraine's borders to be like what they were previously. But since Putin has continued to defy Trump and, turn down his overtures, he's made it where Trump is going to take a harder line with him, and also making it look like he is more intractable than Hamas is not a good look for him.
One of the more interesting plot lines regarding President Trump is how comfortable he tends to be in the Middle East. He really does look up to a lot of the, the Saudi royals and some of the dictators, because he has a strongman personality. And in terms of a negotiator, as a president, he understands the Middle East better than most previous presidents. That might makes right in that part of the world. And I think that there's always been a really interesting amount of respect that goes between him and leaders in that part of the world. Vladimir Putin is not that guy, and he's going to have to change tactics. But again, I'm really glad to have a president who isn't going to bed at 8 p.m. And having naps in the middle of the afternoon. And I say that with all seriousness. President Biden did not have a phone call with Vladimir Putin for 2 years of that war. Unbelievable. So this is what it looks like when you have a president on the job.
I think it is incredibly telling, though, that we're saying President Trump is at home when it comes to autocrats in the Middle East. And of course, he is at home when he likes to accept bribes like a $400 million Qatari jet that won't even be ready by the time his presidency ends, and then goes to his personal foundation, a library, which I doubt it's going to spend any time at the library. He's going to be flying it himself.
Is that true, Stephen? I thought that the jet was a gift to the United States government.
Hold on. The jet was a gift to President Trump It will have to be retrofitted by the U.S. It's going to cost about $1 billion potentially to retrofit it. It is estimated it will not be ready by the time this administration ends, and then it goes not to the U.S. government, but to Trump's own personal libraries.
Yeah, to the library.
All of that
It's a shady deal. I don't like it. But like going back to the issue of temperament, I don't think there's really much point in sitting here and sort of wringing our hands about who the president actually gets along with in the world. Europe is riddled with weak apologetic leaders who don't stand up for their own countries or believe in their own cultures. And he looks to people in the Middle East and goes like, these guys are at least serious. They're trying to run countries. And that is someone who we actually need right now on the stage trying to bring peace to a war on a bunch of different fronts. So sometimes people are just born into the world at the right time when the world needs them.
Yeah, and actually, Paul, do you know what? When you look at the state of the UK and Europe, I don't particularly care if Qatar's given Trump a jet. I don't care if there's
you're not a U.S. citizen.
If I was an American voter and I saw my country going to hell, as President Trump accused of European nations of doing, then
our voters don't care about that either. People
wouldn't care. I'd want the borders shut, which he's done. I'd want a bit of authority on the world stage, which he's done, and a bit of energy and mojo back, which he's done.
Well, energy and mojo, inflation is up 0.5%. It was 2.4 when he started. It's 2.9 now.
Your GDP is like 3.5%, whereas in Europe it's like 0.1%.
Tell that to the unemployed folks. There are more job openings. There are less job openings than there are unemployed people. The deficit has gone up. Consumer confidence is down. There are a lot of things we can talk about when it comes to Trump's economy, and it is not hot.
And one of the remarkable things about that, though, is how flat Donald Trump's approval rating has been. He is higher than he was during his first administration within his first 12 months. Republicans are also sitting way more pretty than they were in 2017 during the first Trump administration, when Democrats were, arguably going to rise up and sweep the midterms. The Democratic Party has never been more unpopular, and they're having a real hard time moving the needle.
Democrats are overperforming at a higher rate in special elections than they did in...
Congratulations on performing well in a special election when a quarter of the voting population turns out.
A by-election.
A special election is like if a state legislator steps down.
And that's when about 5 people know there's an election happening and they show up and the best coordinated team wins. It has nothing to do with popularity, and you know that.
Actual votes have nothing to do with popularity. Sure, the elections we're winning have nothing to do with popularity, but we'll see when we win the Virginia governor's race, the New Jersey governor's race, and we'll talk then.
Paul, I'm going to bring you in just a second. I want to play this sorry, Paul. So go on, Paul. Go on then. Sorry, I feel bad. Go on, Paul. You go.
Ben, you never have to feel bad. You call me a superstar every time I'm on. All I was going to say, it's about optics, isn't it? And it's about output. So with President Trump, if he gets to the end of his term and he has reduced illegal migration to 0, which he's already done, ICE have done their job and shipped a load of people back, a load of criminals back. He's got peace in the Middle East to some degree. Always going to be very difficult to get total peace. He's got peace in Ukraine and Russia. Then nobody's going to remember the other stuff. Economies go up and down. It can be irrespective of who's in charge. One thing is by comparison to Sleepy Joe, Donald Trump is doing much, much better. And he's putting pride back into the US. People can look at the US and see a country that's trying to lead the world once again.
Paul Malley is sat next to me. He said he wants to fly to London now and put you in a headlock.
I love Paul. I would never do that to him. Look, I'll say this. The math is the math. The data is the data. Inflation was going down when President Trump got inaugurated. I will do the math here. 2.4% was the inflation rate. It is now 2.9% and is going up. The jobs data was so bad, he fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner because he disliked the data. And you talked about violent criminals and ICE. 70% of the folks ICE has arrested, according to their own data, have not committed a violent crime. There is also incidents...
But they're criminals because they broke into the country illegally. They are by definition illegal.
He said violent, so let's again get the data straight.
Okay, Maddie, I want to get your take on something else Trump's doing at the moment. Sorry to interject, we've only got a few minutes left. Let's play this clip about the reconstruction of the White House, then I've got your thoughts, Maddie and Steve. Right, so this is the reconstruction of the White House. He's building what, Stephen? A massive ballroom, right?
A massive ballroom funded by himself and some generous friends.
So why are the left losing their minds, their marbles?
Performative patriotism is a thing that I think every country engages in based on who's in power and who's out. The East Wing is a pretty unremarkable and unhistoric place by and large. Most of the good stuff that happens in the White House and a lot of the great memories and artifacts are going to be in the West Wing where the president resides. The East Wing came about in, 1942. It's not like some sacred hallowed ground. They're going to do a renovation, or I guess this would be an entire gutting, and building a ballroom to host people.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Matt, it's a $200 million ballroom, as you probably know. Hillary Clinton there saying it's not his house, it's your house, the taxpayers. Somebody replied to Hillary today, Link Lauren, who's a friend of the show, comes on the show quite often on the Late Show Live, and said, I've got to be careful how I frame this, and said, Miss Clinton, your ex-husband got up to no good in the White House and some other stuff as well. And I thought it was a very concise bar back at Hillary Clinton, so she's not one to talk, is she? Let me find the actual tweet. Go on, Mally.
Well, yeah, I would say Hillary Clinton did walk into that one. But look, I don't care that they're doing renovations to the White House. I mean,
good on you, Mally. Good on you.
I mean, politically, it's not a good look to show like half of the house destroyed, like that could be used in campaign ads, and then you can say it's a metaphor for the country. But like, I don't care about the historical artifacts of the White House getting destroyed there. But it's also, again, I think just shows you misplaced priorities. He is focusing on building a ballroom for
it's his money, though, isn't it?
Well, it's donors' money, and who knows what was promised there. We've had reports that folks have tried to buy pardons. We know that he pardons his friends and allies, like the disgraced former New York congressman. So,
but at least he signed those pardons.
Yeah, and this is where narrative really matters, and I think Mally is onto something here. Nobody needs to pretend they really care about the East Wing and that there's going to be a ballroom, but there is a narrative that Democrats can and probably should be latching onto, which is, who's paying for this? Are there favors involved? Does it add to the air of corruption? You know, that is one of Donald Trump's greatest weaknesses. I'm not a Trump flack. I'm happy to say that. There is a perception that he gets a little bit too cozy with the donor class.
Okay. Trump has made more money as president than he ever did in his previous business life.
Oh, well, he stopped illegal migration. Paul, Link Lauren, the tweet was, you'll be the last to comment on this. Link Lauren replied to Hillary Clinton saying, your husband was getting sexual favour in the Oval Office, that wasn't the word. Biden had cocaine everywhere. Let's stop the pearl clutching. You all disgrace the White House. I'll do a little foxtrot in the ballroom for you. Cheers.
That was Biden on cocaine. The guy was asleep for about 30% of his presidency. That's remarkable. He must have had quite the tolerance. Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, of course, yeah. How could I forget Hunter Biden? Oh, look. It's interesting optics. I'm not surprised. I mean, he's a real estate man, Trump, isn't he? I'm not surprised at all. He wants to put his own stamp on the White House. It will be legacy. This is what Trump wants. He wants legacy. Long after he's gone, the Trump ballroom will still be in the White House, and Mally will have to just accept it.
I do got to say, when Gavin Newsom wins in 2028, we'll rename it the Jeffrey Epstein Ballroom, and we'll release the files. So we'll have a good time with that.
Outrageous. But nice shot.
Paul, thank you very much for your company. Loved having you again, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Sweet dreams, safe travels back home to Hampshire. Down to, I think he's in Pompey, isn't he, in Hampshire? And thank you both for tonight. Viewers, thank you for your company tonight. gbnews.com/Your Say has been an absolute ball tonight. Aaron said, Ben, you've got pizza all down your shirt. Have I? Oh,
no, you're
jokes.
good.
I'm good. I didn't do an Ed Miliband. I'm a bit more classy than Ed Miliband, I should hope. Thank you to my panel, Stephen, Mally and Paul. What, Stephen, Mally and Paul. Sorry, there we go. It's been a long night. Three of you, Stephen, Mally and Paul. And you viewers at home as well. I'm back tomorrow, midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Bev is off all week. She's enjoying some downtime with her family, as I did last week as well. And one more Your Say comment. Donna said, Ben's really going for it. Vicky, the lefties are crying. As always, Vicky, as always. I'll see you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams, and yeah, let us know what you think about tomorrow's news agenda as well. gbnews.com/Your Say. I believe there's going to be much more on the grooming gang scandal, and indeed this farmers' protest in Westminster coinciding with Rachel Reeves' budget. Anyway, enough of me. Sweet dreams. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There could be some mist and fog patches lingering through the early hours of this morning, but then we're left with a day of sunny spells and also some showers, starting to turn wet and windy later on this evening, however. But to start, for most of us, it should be mostly bright, and to be honest, it should be a dry day for many, a mix of cloud and also some sunny spells. There are going to be some showers, though, particularly across western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England could also catch some of these showers. Quite breezy across parts of Scotland, though, which might make it feel that little bit chillier. Otherwise, still feeling pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching around 15, possibly 16 degrees Celsius, but around the low teens across parts of Scotland, so feeling that little bit chillier here. Then we will start to see a bit of a change overnight. Across Scotland, however, we'll continue to see the showers push in from the west, still fairly breezy across northern coasts. Northern Ireland still could catch some of these showers, but elsewhere across northern parts of England, it should be mostly dry. Quite a clear end to the day, fairly light winds here, so we could see some mist and fog redevelop. But all eyes are really across parts of the southwest. Some intense areas of rain starting to push their way eastwards across southern counties and parts of the southeast through the course of Wednesday. And then we'll really start to see those winds pick up too, initially around western coasts of Wales, parts of southwest England, and then elsewhere across parts of the east and southeast. So we could see some quite strong gusty winds by the time we reach the early hours of Thursday morning, and some quite intense areas of rain here too. But across the far north, a little bit calmer here, some clear skies, so feeling chilly with some mist and fog. Now, the rain is set to continue through much of Thursday morning, particularly across the southeastern half of the country. Some quite intense downpours, which could lead to some localised impacts, and also some very strong gusty winds, particularly around eastern and western coasts. A chance we could see gusts between 40 to 50 miles per hour here, with some Met Office warnings